Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special new series and episode from Not Your Father's Movies. I'm Vito.
I'm Mike.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Jesse. We are going to be crowing at you with some big dad energy.
The biggest. If anyone has seen that film Unhinged, where Russell Crowe is in that, he's taking up all of the screen. Like every shot he's in, it's about 80% of him because he's so big. Because finally his physical form has matched his interior. And we can talk about this because, of course, this is a new series that we're starting, and we are calling it the Chronological Crow series. Now, this might confuse people, saying, like, why are you starting this with this movie that I see the title of? It's Noah. Why are you starting it with this movie? This takes place in 2014. This is not at the beginning of his career. That is true. However, we are not going from the beginning of Russell Crowe's career. We're going back in time, and the movies that we cover from Russell Crowe in this series will be from the beginning all the way to the end of time. So this takes place, obviously, in the early before days of the BCE era.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, what is it, like 1000 BC?
Oh, it's like 5,000.
That's when the pyramids were made. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. 20,000 BC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some before time.
We looked through his filmography and we found the movies that we wanted to cover and we just traced them up through the years. So this one takes place a long time ago at the beginning of the Earth.
In a galaxy right here.
Yeah. And the next, as the movies go on, we will be proceeding in chronological order in the universe of the movies we're covering.
Right.
That's the conceit.
Well,
of
it's like the chronology of time.
Yes.
Like the time that we live
in the movies.
But like the movies that he did in order.
Yes.
Of time. Like of when
You're making this much more confusing.
Also, correction, the pyramids were built in approximately 2500 BC. So, yeah.
Jesse, okay. You moron. How did you not know that before?
I know. But fun fact, we are closer to Julius Caesar than Julius Caesar was to the pyramids.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
That's insanity.
Yeah, they were built way back when. So anyway, fun fact of the day. Fun fact over.
I like thinking of this chronological crow idea almost like if you've seen The Fountain, where characters come back every certain number of centuries or every few hundred years, and they keep coming back as the same person, as kind of like a reincarnation thing. I feel like that's kind of how we're doing Russell Crowe's. He was Noah, and then he was the next guy in the next millennia, or he was the next guy in a few hundred years from then. I was looking at the internet to see if there was like a fan theory about this, but there's not. So I need to write that fan theory. But yeah,
I feel like this takes a really weird turn around, the French Revolution. Like, Maximus and Noah actually is a singing police officer, But that's all to say. This is the first movie in our Chronological Crow series. It is Noah from 2014. Brought to us by Darren Aronofsky.
And also 4,000 BC.
Also 4,000, 5,000, 6,000.
Whenever it was.
They just said it was so long ago that there's fucking rock angels.
Right? Yeah, there's fucking rock angels. It's crazy.
All right, cool. And then just a quick little two pieces of housekeeping before we continue on. I will not be on for the next several weeks, but I'm more than happy to hand these reins over to you guys. You know what you're doing. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about the next two Crow movies. I think they'll be pretty big, and I think people will be excited to hear it. So there's that. And then the second thing I wanted to mention is that we just recently launched a Patreon. In case people don't know this, you can find us there at Not Your Father's Movies. We have linked to it in a couple different places. We're going to be pushing this a little bit harder. We have several different tiers to choose from. The highest tier, over a long enough period of you being subscribed, could get you a t-shirt, a mug, some other cool swag. You get to have a weigh-in on some episodes, but a more affordable tier at $5 a month will get you our monthly What's Up episode that we're going to start putting out for people to hear. That's where you will find our What's Up segment in a mega format, expanded across a whole episode for you to enjoy.
And if you pledge at the top two tiers, you get a shout out. So, Sir Woods, thanks for supporting us.
Yes.
We made a whole tier for you.
We did, sir. Lovely man, great friend, amazing collaborator, just a gold mine of a human being, even if he likes Jared Leto just too much.
Huge amount.
But of course, shouting him out here, You can also find stuff that he's done at the My Movie Fix podcast. We've collaborated with him plenty of times. You can find him there. Or you can find him over at Sir's Furniture, SIRR''S Furniture. You'll be hearing more about that in a little ad. We're going to start running a couple of ads.
We got an ad.
Yeah. We'll hear about that a little bit later. All right. Diving into what we got here, guys. Noah from 2014, written and directed by Darren Aronofsky with co-writer Ari Handel. Do you have anything that you want to tell us about Ari Handel, Mike?
Yeah. He was actually Darren Aronofsky's roommate at Harvard, I believe, and he's also a neuroscientist, which is just wild.
Which one's the hobby? Is the hobby?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, he co-wrote the Fountain as well, and has produced most of Darren Aronofsky's movies, along with Darren.
Right. Who's a real creative
now.
force of his own. He's always a writer. He's always a director. He's always a producer.
Yeah. So they're buddies and they work together quite a bit, which is really cool.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of these from this kind of school of indie filmmakers who rose to prominence and have become respected art house filmmakers, right? I'm thinking of like Robert Eggers. I'm thinking even of Christopher Nolan, who started out in a very artistic space. They always had a close collaborator that they worked with, sometimes many. I mean, we talked about this when we did Scorsese's Gangsters. Like Scorsese's got his crew, and he just rolls with his crew. Seems to be the good way to make things.
They're just usually not neuroscientists.
This is true.
Like that's just wild.
But it makes
sense.
If you look over at the Blank Check podcast, recently did a deep dive on Sam Raimi, and Sam Raimi's brother. He has two brothers, Ted and Ivan, and Ted is a doctor. Ted is also like a co-writer on a lot of his stuff, and is usually an actor who gets layered under lots and lots of makeup. So in Evil Dead 2, he's the evil old woman witch who's in the basement.
Nice. That's awesome.
Sometimes doctors, they just want to play.
Yeah, I guess so. They're just like us.
Oh, docs just want to have fun.
It also makes me realize if I want one of my kids to get into movies, I just need to name them Ari, because Ari Handel and Ari Aster are the only two people I've ever heard with that first name, and they're both amazing with movies. So
yeah, absolutely. I have messed up already with two kids. I had two shots. But then to our main event, this is Russell Crowe. Okay, we're going to be talking a lot about Mr. Crowe in depth, because this series is about this man. We want to focus on him as a dad actor. Is he cantankerous? Yes. Is he occasionally gruff and violent in real life? Also, yes.
And in the movies.
Yeah. The off-screen, on-screen personas do not seem to be that dissimilar sometimes.
I would expect nothing less.
Exactly. He's a cranky Australian man who has a lot of talent and has his fingers in a lot of pies, and we'll be diving into him as we go along. But this also stars Jennifer Connelly. I mean, everyone I think knows Jennifer Connelly, and if you don't, you might remember. I remember the first time I saw her was in Ang Lee's Hulk movie from way back 2003. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was like the first time, and I was in love.
And this is her second time playing Russell Crowe's wife. Actually, she was in A Beautiful Mind.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, which he won an Oscar for, right?
He did. He did. Weird that that's the one, but okay. We also have Ray Winstone here as Kubla Khan, who has been on previously. Tubal Cain.
Kubla Khan.
I'm thinking more about
that. Oh, wow.
Star Trek.
Sorry, Tubal Cain. Who, if you remember, was on The Departed.
Yep.
Frenchie, right? Jack Nicholson's right-hand man.
Mm-hmm.
Has he been in another episode we've done?
No, but the fact that he's in 2 means that he's been on this podcast more than Russell Crowe.
Which is kind of surprising, right?
Well, yeah, we were saving a whole series for Crowe, and here we are, crowing about Crowe.
Crowing about Crowe.
Yeah, are you going to do a Ray Winston series? I doubt it. He's
got me thinking about it now.
He's the main guy in The Sopranos, right?
That's James Gandolfini.
Oh, okay. For some reason I saw his face.
He's just like a heavy.
He's a big dude.
He's and he plays the heavy.
Except in Beowulf, remember?
I have not seen Beowulf.
Where he was the mocap and the voice for Beowulf, which is really surprising.
It's very odd.
We also got here joined again by the lovely Sir Anthony Hopkins. We've discussed before. Always a pleasure to see him, and he looks like he's having just the time of his life here.
Yeah. Playing Methuselah.
Yeah. The oldest man ever.
Yep.
We also have Logan Lerman, who I said to my wife, I was like, is there a more typecast actor for being like a baby in things than Logan Lerman? He's also appeared in 3:10 to Yuma, where he plays the exact same character. He's just an angry baby. What is it with this guy?
Oh wait, Russell Crowe was in 3:10 to Yuma.
That's right. That was stupid of us.
Yeah. How did I forget that?
Oh yeah, he was totally in there. I remember him.
We did that twice.
That movie.
We did that movie twice. I forgot.
Jesse, you should have caught that. That was your movie.
I should have. I forgot. Yeah. I wasn't on the 3:10 to Yuma episode, so I forgot we covered it.
That's right.
Yeah, it was weird that we did that. Why are we doing this? Time is a flat circle. Moving on, we have Emma Watson here, also for her first time on this show.
Yeah.
Until we do all the Harry Potters, which will come eventually.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, she'll be on 8 more times. So, yeah, let's pass over her.
Exactly. And then, Mike, do you want to read these last two?
The guy who plays Shem, who's really a wet blanket, and Nick Nolte, who is one of the Nephilim, as is Mark Margolis, who played Tio Hector Salamanca in Breaking Bad, which is cool. And he has actually been in most of Aronofsky's movies.
You see, the reason I didn't recognize the voice of Hector is because he doesn't talk.
Yeah.
In Breaking Bad. He just rings a bell really aggressively.
Like, it doesn't sound like Hector.
He talks a lot in Better Call Saul.
Oh, yeah, he does talk. But he's got a face. It's like his face is what sticks out to me.
Yeah, it moves so much. So it's weird to not see his face and just hear the voice because, I didn't know it was him.
Shout out to my wife, who was like, is that Nick Nolte? I was like, no, it's not Nick Nolte, because it immediately switched to a different rock monster who also had a gravelly voice. But now, as I'm seeing in our Google Doc, she was totally right. So, Jill, when you hear this, you were spot on. I don't know how you know Nick Nolte's voice better than I do, but great job. Great job. All right, going on over to our nostalgia first impressions. Dan, how about we start with you as someone who, so Mike and I are going to kind of share a tandem one with Jesse here, the three. How about you tell us about what your first impressions are?
So I just saw this a couple days ago for the first time. I had kind of put off seeing it. A lot of my friends and family, when this first came out, they were not really into it. I had some friends that went and saw it and I think they were expecting to go see a movie about Noah, and they didn't know who Darren Aronofsky was. And I think that's a bad combination going into this movie. If you are not expecting something a bit surreal, something a bit melodramatic, and you're going into an Aronofsky, it's never going to be a good outcome. So I had kind of a bad, let's say, expectation about this movie. And then when Vito recommended it for this series, and everybody was like right on board with it, I was like, hey, I'm going to give this a shot. I hadn't really heard about the movie in quite some time.
And
so
it's a series that you came up with too.
Yeah, I was like, I wanted to do Russell Crowe, and then you guys were like, Noah, and I was like, oh, okay.
I guess we're doing Noah.
Wait, can you say that one more time?
I guess we're doing Noah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were making a Noah pun, and I wanted to hear it, but okay.
Oh.
He wanted to know about it.
There we go.
So I was like, yeah, let's do this. I'm always up for, obviously I know Aronofsky's stuff. I've actually seen most of his stuff at this point. So this was the one that was just hanging on that list of, I need to watch this for him. And then, I'm always down for more Russell Crowe in my life. So this was, I was primed to see this when I did. And definitely I enjoyed it. I really, really liked some things about it. There were some scenes that were amazing. And I know that, like, in 3 years, those scenes are going to be what I remember and what stand out in my brain. And I will definitely go back to this movie in the future, maybe even as like a intro to Aronofsky. It might be a good, like, you tell someone who Aronofsky is, the kind of weird stuff he does. And this might be a good, like, introduction, because it's weird, but it's like, it's not Mother. It's not like, it's not so surreal. It's not Black Swan. Yeah. It's not so psychological. It's still enjoyable. There's still like a kind of like an action packed time in there. There's a lot of the fantastical stuff. Rock Rock Angels. So that's kind of how I'm seeing this, is like, it's a really cool Aronofsky intro movie. And yeah, I had a great time with it.
Nice. So for the three of us, just for the listener, I'm sure you already know this, but if this is your first time listening to the show, Dan is a good friend of ours, but Mike, Jesse, and I all went to the same college, and that's where we all met. And we went to go see this movie. I believe, I mean, this was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But we went to see it in theaters, I believe, all together with several friends of the pod. And at the time, I had just started dating my wife like a month prior, maybe.
Probably.
And
I had just broken up with my wife like a week prior, but we were still friends, so it was cool.
Yeah. And then
she had broken up with me. We dated for a day.
Yeah.
At that time.
I feel like you can't use those terms in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't, but I won in the end.
You
She
did.
married me.
That's right.
You guys went out for a day and then broke up for a day? That is drama that I just totally forgot. Yeah.
It wasn't really drama. We were just like, this is kind of weird. We started dating. I was like, so will you be my girlfriend? And she's like, yeah. And it was like weird. Like, let's go back to being friends. She's like, yeah.
Do you want to go see Noah?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's the part of the story that knowing Mary Claire is actually not weird, right?
Yeah.
But Jesse, you and Liz, I mean, past guest and future guest Liz, how long have you guys been together at this point?
9 years?
No. At the Noah point.
Oh, a couple months. Yeah.
Okay,
we've been
so
together 2 months.
So we were all. Oh wow! Really?
Wait, really? No, because this was senior year.
Oh, all right, a year.
A year and 2 months. Okay.
Okay.
Because I was like,
14
we didn't all start dating at the same time. Okay, so we're all going to see this. We all have young relationships. But this movie, like, I remember walking out and being kind of floored and not really knowing what to do. I remember I think I was I like 21, I think, and not having experienced anything like this or made me feel like this. This was so early on in dating my wife. I think we'd gone on like 4 dates together. There was a sequence in this movie, one of the fall of Abel by the hand of Cain, and it's when the hand is going up and you see that the shadows of the people change into all the different kinds of people throughout time, and that for some reason like broke me, and I remember sobbing in the theater. Like ugly crying. I remember my wife turning, just my girlfriend of 1 month turning and kind of like looking at me, like full on, are you okay? And I remember just being like, oh the pain of humans. I was very sensitive. I'm very sensitive. And it just impressed upon me so much. And I love being able to share that with you guys. And I remember what I chiefly remember about this movie is that sequence, and about kind of coming together with you guys after it and kind of knowing that this movie was going to be really controversial, and us getting in on kind of the ground floor of it and being like, what do we make of this?
Yeah.
Jesse, what was it like for you?
I remember really liking it. Like, I remember not going in with so I went in with the proper expectation for this movie, I think, which was knowing this is going to be really weird and kind of out there, and not the story of a guy who's being like oppressed by society for making a giant boat and then rainbows at the end. Like, I knew that's not what it was going to be, but I think that's what most people were expecting. And instead I found this story of this guy, and like, I guess I found like some of my faith in God in here too, like some of my struggles, right? Like, you can't hear God sometimes, but and here's a guy who's trying to figure out the right thing, the biggest thing in the biggest moment of human history, which is there's an apocalypse happening, the world's ending, and God's not really talking to you, and he's being really unclear. So what do you do? And he's making the wrong choices. That it seemed pretty clear as the audience, like, no, that's the wrong choice, dude. You don't do that. Like, making the right choices sometimes, making the wrong choices at others, because he's trying to figure it out on his own. And I fell in love with that struggle. Like, I really relate to Noah in a scary way that was hard to acknowledge at first. Yeah, and I really fell into like this whole like how different the world is. Like the stars are different, and there are rock monsters and this crazy stuff that you mine for that like blows up and like there's fireworks too. I don't know. I really like that, and I like the idea that everything's totally different. And I fell in love with this version of Noah in the theaters, and I could see why some people would probably have a really hard time going that if you're expecting the Bible story of Noah and you get this instead. Edgelord Noah.
When you birth that child, be it male or female, I will slay it where it lays. You're like,
wow, that's metal.
Okay.
Yep.
Bad way.
Yeah. That's where I landed on the movie. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, similar to both you guys, it was really powerful. I feel like we were sitting up pretty close to the screen. It was a packed showing.
Yeah.
Tons of people that we knew were there.
It was a packed showing in our town, which is weird.
I think it's because everyone we knew went to go see it.
Sure.
It was just like the spectacle of it left me flabbergasted. People, I mean, like the choices that Darren Aronofsky made choices with this movie that are enormous. And some of them are incredible and some of them are, questionable maybe, but like just the gall of a guy who makes a movie called Noah is amazing. But so I had seen Requiem for a Dream before seeing this.
Okay.
And that's all I had seen. And I was like, the guy who made Requiem for a Dream is making...
The one where Jared Leto loses his arm?
Yeah. With Jennifer Connelly, actually.
Yeah.
And I was like, the guy who made that is making this. And so like people are like, oh, we're going to go see Noah. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be what you think it is. So I was...
This is Not Your Father's Noah.
Yeah, Not Your Father's Noah. Not your Bible's Noah.
I don't think you know what that means. Yeah.
Yeah. But so I was prepared for something kind of off the wall. I wasn't prepared for this though. It was really cool too because I was writing my senior thesis at the school you went to. We write a big paper at the end of our senior year, and I had chosen to write mine about Cain and Abel. It's a story that has enraptured me, and
I'm not familiar with that one.
Well, these two brothers, they kill each other. Well, one of them kills the other.
Is that the same one at the beginning of this movie?
Yeah, it's actually the same one. Yeah,
okay, cool. I'm on board. Yeah.
And I was writing my thesis about this. I love this story, like many other people, right? But one of my favorite books is East of Eden, which had kind of spurred me on to, it was the first big important book that I had read that took that story of Cain and Abel and brought it out of the Bible and into day-to-day life. It blew my mind, and it still continues to. I still love the story of Cain and Abel as a myth and as a story. And so the way that this movie draws that into the story of Noah is really profound and really, really cool. Just the whole approach to this myth and this epic story was mind-blowing to me. It opened up a new door in what could be done in general.
Yeah. I feel like the stage was sort of set, at least in maybe in terms of the studio's mind, but I definitely think in the popular culture's mind. Like we had The Passion of the Christ, which was like the highest grossing R-rated movie at the time that this movie came out, which was a huge like faith-based thing, and it attracted a lot of faith-based viewers to it. It made tons and tons of money. And there was always kind of that question of like, what's going to kind of do that again? And I remember a lot of that build up for Noah. Like I even remember people hearing from people back in my hometown who were like getting together church groups to go see this movie. And that's
this is a terrible church group movie.
It's terrible because it is about Noah, but it's also about a lot of other things. And it's using this epic story to talk about both the mythical, maybe the imaginative, but definitely about current issues, all while also talking about universal things. Like it's talking about a lot of stuff, and it's doing it in the weirdest way possible that actually kind of makes sense once you're down for it. That initial confusion of what are we sitting down to see? And I think the movie does a really good job by beginning with that script, right? it's in the beginning there was a thing, and like it kind of goes through the creation real quick, but then it's like, and then there were angels that fell, and then they helped
wait
out.
a second. What?
Yeah, I think it's trying to like it's trying to check you at the door before you see like a minute of actual footage, just to let you know, like, you're not going to see what you think you're going to see. And then to open with Noah's father getting killed by the descendants of Cain. He's a descendant of the house of Seth, with the serpent skin and all that. Like, it's already introducing you into this as a very weird, ancient, kind of Gnostic society and structure, and that's how we should be viewing this, is not within the lens of Christianity or Judeo-Christian values. Really, we should be viewing it as the story, and I feel like he's trying to tell a story not necessarily separate from Christianity, but definitely not in conjunction with it, and I think that's hard. I think it's really hard to do.
Can I ask, what was the general feeling, or what was the general reaction at your college? Was
Rage.
Everybody just rage?
Yes.
Everyone hated
I
it.
talked to, the people.
I don't know about that.
No. The people who hated it, and the people who loved it, loved it. I do not recall talking to one person who was in the middle of that.
That's true. It was a very polarizing movie.
Okay. Not a lot of healthy debate going on.
No, because the people who hated it because it wasn't Noah. And the people who loved it because it wasn't Noah.
We all agreed. Well, I don't know. I feel like I had a lot of good conversations with people about it. I thought one of the things that was really cool was like my now wife and I did like a lot of, after we saw it, we like looked into it and stuff and discovered this whole like Midrash tradition that it's kind of built off of. Midrash is, and I'm going to butcher this, but it's essentially like rabbis throughout the years would kind of write sort of like stories surrounding and giving context to the stories in the Bible and fleshing them out. And so like the Nephilim, like the rock angels, like that's sort of a tradition in one thing. And all these different things are pulled out of that, which is fascinating. It's like a fascinating thing that I didn't know anything about. To wrap up my nostalgia for it, and as a final like taste treat, a taste of what that's going to be, this movie is what kind of caused us to get married. And it's really important from that perspective. We haven't actually seen it since then. So this is the first time we've seen it since then, which is kind of fun. Very cool.
Did it reignite all the passion of your youth?
Well, I was trying to figure out how to get her to hang out with me again after we had stopped like dating, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? She really liked that movie, Noah. Like maybe I can talk to her about it. And so I texted her. I was like, hey, you want to like have a drink and talk about Noah? And she did. And the rest was history.
Look at you smooth operator.
It was great.
Great.
So Noah brought us together. Thank you, Russell Crowe.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Russ.
Thank you, Ari.
Yeah. All right. So that's our nostalgia first impressions. Let's do a quick once round for when and will we show this to our kids? I will lead. I will say yes, I will. I am going to wait until late teens, simply because since this is kind of an exploration of faith, kind of a deconstruction, also kind of a modern commentary, while also being about the biblical figure Noah, I want to be able to have a kind of an intellectual conversation, a kind of an educated conversation with my kids about this. So I would wait till probably 17 or 18 to do this, and I would probably do some reading beforehand so I could answer some questions about like the rock monsters. Again, I hate to keep saying it, but I mean they're the big weird thing in this movie. I'd love to be able to give some context like we're talking about right now, and I'd also love to be able to give that to someone who has a capacity for independent thought and thinks their own stuff. So I'm going later, but I'm definitely saying yes, and I'm only going later just because of the concepts, not for any of the content. I mean, as far as content, you can see this when you're 13, 14, you know? What do you guys think?
I mostly agree with you. Like there's some, like when they're on the ark and everybody's screaming in the water and on the mountain. I don't know. That's not, even for 13, 14, I think that was kind of shocking in theaters. I mean, like I've seen apocalypse movies before.
Yeah, you never see like Day After Tomorrow and stuff. Like
it's not that you don't hear those screams like that. Like, I mean, I saw Day After Tomorrow when I was like 12 or 13, but it didn't come across the same way.
It's like the visual of like millions of people dying versus hearing some screams for a few seconds. You know what I mean?
No, they're pretty intense screams. No, yeah. And then also like the plot of wanting to kill a baby, your grandchildren. Yeah, I know it doesn't actually happen. You don't actually see anything, but like this entire plot is more mature, more adult. So yeah, I'd wait till their late teens as well.
Yeah, I think this really raises a lot of questions as far as like what's the intersection between art and religion supposed to look like? Like what kind of liberties is an artist, allowed to or supposed to take? And I know that that's very controversial, very much, something that I disagree with a lot of adults that I know. And I am still trying to figure out for myself, like what that is supposed to look like, how I'm supposed to feel about an artist taking something, that I believe in or that I've held as true. And then they take it and they run with it. They run, what, like we were saying, that's very imaginative. Even if it's very beautiful, like what is that supposed to look like? What's in the realm of acceptable creative power, right? That you give to somebody. And personally, I'm like, if it's good art, then run with it. Like I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to it, but because I know it's very controversial, and I think it does take an older mind to kind of grapple with that and to understand that. I would say definitely like 17, 18 and no younger, because of that kind of difficult conversation that I want to have with my kids. I'm looking forward to having with my kids, but I definitely want them to have the mental capacity to discuss that and to like grow from this viewing. And also Darren Aronofsky, like I'm not expecting to show like any of his movies to my kids, and maybe when they're like 30. So
not showing Black Swan to your children.
Yeah. So like I want to introduce my kids to him, but I'm like, maybe this will be like the one movie that I show them. And then if they want to go and see that stuff in college. Oh yeah, the Fountain.
Yeah, the Fountain's pretty younger.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. The Fountain.
I mean, they won't understand it like myself, but yeah.
It'll amaze them like it amazes me.
It's visually amazing too.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I feel like the same as you guys, sort of later teens, for the same reasons. I think it depends a lot on like the maturity of the kid, but it's also like, in a certain way, with something like this, when you've taken an old story and sort of changed it in a large degree, or using these old figures to tell the same story but in a new way, it sort of requires you to have like a lot of background knowledge, and for these stories to have taken root in you deeply. There's a reason why we all like immediately connect with them. Like that's why myths are myths. Like they are these archetypal stories that everyone connects to, whether it's because they grew up reading them or because they speak very, very clearly about the human condition.
So very quickly to jump in, by myths, so we're being careful here. We're not saying that all myths are necessarily fabrications.
Yes, yeah. I
think that's really important to make clear, because sometimes when you say
you're right,
it's a myth, like you're saying it's not real, but this is transcending almost like what a story is. Like it's a story is written on paper, a myth is inscribed on the stone wall, right? Like it's something that stands time.
Yeah. I don't mean at all that this is something that didn't. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that people aren't saying like, and then the myth of Noah's Ark. You're like, no, Noah's Ark is mythical.
What I mean by myth is like, I think myth, like the idea of myths, like true myths, like the story of Troy and like the story, like there is more reality in them than in many things.
Right.
And there's even more reality than the story of Troy in the stories in the Bible. And that's why it stood the test of time, maybe.
One of the reasons.
So I guess that's to say that for these to take root, it takes time. And I think for someone to come to something like this and be able to accept it and to take from it like the really incredible things that I think it's bringing, like there needs to be an encounter with other pieces of art and pieces of sort of the general like world of art, I guess. that's come between the story of Cain and Abel, the story of Noah, and now the story of Adam and Eve.
Okay. Good answer, all of you. Yeah, Jesse, actually, I'd love to do another. We'll have to circle back on that issue, that topic of like, we've always been dancing around it, but I'd love to talk about it more in depth at a certain point about realistic violence versus fantasy violence and where it sits, because I think we both have strong opinions on it. Love to do that. We need to find a space to do that in. Unfortunately, it can't be here.
Not Noah.
Hey, everyone. Jumping in real quick to tell you about something I'm personally very excited for. It's Sir's Furniture. SIRRS Furniture. Now, if you've been listening to our podcast for a long time, then you know about Sir. We did the crossover with the Before Sunset trilogy. He's been on a couple of our episodes. I've been on a couple of his. He's a dear friend, and he happens to make, besides a fantastic podcast, beautiful custom-made wood cutting boards of whatever flavor of wood you want in whatever kind of design you want. It's beautiful custom work. And with summertime coming up, I know that I'm going to be out barbecuing. I'm going to be out going to birthday parties. I'm going to be going to a couple of weddings. And it's sometimes hard to pick, what to give somebody, what to give a friend of mine. Sir's Furniture is your one-stop shop for cutting boards, charcuterie boards, coasters, anything that you can really think of that is handmade, handcrafted, and designed woodcraft. You've been using a small plastic board for years. You have. Or, take a look in your kitchen at those dried out twigs that you call cutting boards. And go to sirsfurniture.com, SIRRS furniture.com/NYFM. and check out the wide selection of beautiful handcrafted wooden cutting boards that are on display there. Now, listen, let me tell you, a little bit ago, when Mike welcomed in his third child to the world, Jesse and I banded together and we pitched in on one of the big Bertha, I think it's called the Martha, of the cutting boards. It was big, it had a nice channel around the side, and we put Mike's last name right in the middle. And this board was gorgeous. I was upset that I didn't have Mike's last name so that I couldn't just keep it for myself. It was the single most beautiful cutting board I've ever seen. So that whether you love to cook, barbecue, or just need that perfect gift, Sir has what you need. So for 10% off, use our link, Sir's Furniture. That's SIRRS furniture.com/NYFM. That'll tell him that we sent you. Okay, let's get into some of our favorite scenes. This is my favorite scene from this movie, and it almost always has been. It's either between this and I think it's Dan, your favorite scene. This one, Tubal Cain is walking out. The rain has just started, and he is kind of railing against what he sees as like the grand injustice of his circumstance. He's like, I'm a man. You made me too. What makes him so special? He's like the house of Seth. I'm a Cain. Like I give life. I take it away. I'm just like you. I'm just like him. Why is he special and I'm not special? And I love that. I thought it was so profound and yet very simple. This idea to explore, what's supposed to be, who is fundamentally the antagonist of the movie, but he made me care so much about him in a 2-minute scene. A 2-minute scene. I was like, I don't know. I'm kind of on Tubal Cain's side. Like, yeah, it's not fair. Why does he have to die? Everyone has to die just because, you're not the chosen one. Like, what did he have to do to be the chosen one? Like, where was the manual? Where was the thing? Where were the set of rules he had to follow to get in the good graces of the man upstairs? And why wasn't he given those? I love this scene because it starts that. And then, when you read the biblical story of Noah, you don't get the other side. You just get, they're all making fun of Noah because what a daffy old dude building a boat in the middle of nowhere. Like isn't he stupid and silly? And then when you hear the earth is wiped out, you're like, well, yeah, they didn't believe Noah. Like, that was stupid, and then they didn't believe him. It's like, no, this is a crazy thing to do. And like in the context,
you're right to laugh.
Yeah, even in the context of the movie, where you have rock angels that are building the boat, it's still ridiculous. It's such a big boat. It's so, and then all the animals are coming in, like the confusion in everyone's face is like, all right, look, It's got to be real because things are really strange. We're just going to take it then. He won't let us on. We asked him to let us on. We asked him to say, hey, could we not die? And he said, no, this is happening because of you. You are all going to die for your sins, and I'm going to save these animals. So there you go. Anyway, I just think the scene is really powerful. It touched me on a really personal level when I saw it the first time, even when I continue to see it. What did you guys think of this scene?
Watching it just now, when I watched it a couple days ago, it didn't, when he like shoots the firework up, I was like, what is that? Like he just shoots it up and nothing comes of it. Now I think what that is supposed to symbolize is like, that's the way that God in this, the creator in this universe speaks to people, right? Is he like the clouds light up and God shows what's going on, or he says something, or like God speaks from the clouds. Vision. And so I think he's kind of like almost like prodding God, like he's poking God, saying like, speak to me. He's yelling, speak to me in the scene. Mm-hmm. And for him to shoot something up in the air is like, almost like he's, challenging God or like wanting God to respond. And I agree. I think him as a antagonist was so interesting. It's like certain scenes, he seemed like the totally sane one. He seems like he's the one that I related to. Even certain parts where he's talking about like, man is supposed to kind of take care of this world and he eats the animals and like at certain parts
he said dominate the world.
True. He is like kind of an authoritarian, like taking it too far, but he also at certain parts when he's speaking, I understood his side of it. And he's like, man is the greatest animal. And so we're supposed to be dominating over the creation. And that's taking a step too far, but it's kind of, you understand where he's coming from. And I agree. This was probably his most strong scene of like, you understand his humanity and his struggle, his inner struggle with God and with the fact that he does believe that miracles are happening all around him with Noah. Why can't I be a part of that?
Yeah. And I love the idea that the movie presents, because when you first go into this, you kind of like the way the Bible always portrays it is like, there's the people of God and then there's the people of like, I don't know, Baal or whatever. There's always like some other strange God that they're worshiping and like sacrificing people to. But here, they both acknowledge that there's one creator. They're both going toward the same guy. They both they both have heard the same things. And I love the idea
they're related.
They're all related. I love the idea that they're all, there's just a different interpretation of God going on rather than like a battle of gods happening. I think that makes this story much more compelling.
Do you have any thoughts, Mike, before we move on?
I love this scene. I think it's amazing. And later on, like we see like it's clear that these two characters, Noah and Tubal-Cain, they're like foils for each other, and they're sort of like the mirror images of one another. Noah, it feels like throughout the movie, there's kind of this chipping away at like, oh, Noah's talking to God. It's like, well, yeah, God's talking to Noah because he gives him these crazy visions. But like, he's not saying anything. He's not clarifying anything at all. Like, he's not saying like, no, you gotta keep the...
First you stand in a black field, you look down, there's blood on your feet.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're underwater and everyone's screaming.
Yeah.
Did God talk to you? I think
so. I think I gotta go see Methuselah. I don't know.
Yeah. I love coming from the Bible story perspective. Noah is supposed to be a great man, and in that moment you kind of realize that there's some greatness to Noah. To be able to figure that out when I don't think Tubal-Cain would have ever.
Yeah. And Tubal-Cain, I think, says at one point, like God isn't listening to us. God hasn't talked to us. Care. He's a postmodern Cain.
Yeah.
Like sure there might be a God, but he doesn't care about us. He stopped talking to us long ago.
Yeah. Yes. So before we move on, and continue on, I don't mean move on to a different topic. I mean literally continue and delve deeper. I did want to shout out. There's another person from 3:10 to Yuma in this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Kevin Durand, who played the guy that Russell Crowe kills with a fork.
What?
You remember? They're gonna hang me in the morning.
Yeah.
Before the night is done.
Mhm.
Who's he in this?
That guy, he is Ramil. I'm guessing he is one of the rock angels.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember his face, and he has a really hateable face. He's got a real
this
punch
movie
face
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
I really just wanted to shout that out because I thought it was really weird. This is a 3:10 to Yuma like reunion.
Yeah.
Mike, what's your favorite scene?
I like a lot of scenes in this movie, like in an inordinate amount. Like I think about them regularly, but the one that probably comes up the most is when the plants start growing. When like the Nephilim, the rock monsters, or the rock angels, sorry, not monsters, are like trying to take one of the rock monsters away. I don't remember his name.
Is that Magog?
After Noah has planted like the seed that that Methuselah has given him in the ground. And then all of a sudden, like the forest starts growing, and I don't know, like,
they're like, how are we going to build this thing?
Yeah, like, how are we going to build it? And then there it is, and it's amazing. I remember sitting like watching it on like this huge screen and just my mouth just gaping open, like, what is happening? Because I was thinking also like, how are they going to build an ark here?
This is a wasteland.
Yeah. And I thought it was kind of funny too, because I've seen like there's seeds like that grow on this tree like near my house. You know, like I grew up as a kid using seeds that look exactly like that to like pelt other kids with and get pelted by. So it was really funny to see that. And it's like, oh, there's a whole forest in there.
Yeah.
What's in a seed?
I love too when Tubal Cain shows up, he's like, this is my forest. Like, what are you talking about? You didn't even know this was here.
This dude just grew this forest. Like, you don't get to tell him what to do.
It came out of nowhere. Yeah, he was just there because he was following all the animals. Like, oh, forest guys.
It came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Noah.
No, it came out of nowhere. But then the whole series of like the animals coming to the ship, like it was really cool. The spectacle is amazing. It's really, really good, and it holds up too. I don't know if it'll hold up 10 years from now, but you know,
the idea of it is still so cool.
Yeah,
like you got Gross Animal Day, which is like there's all the lizards and the flies and stuff.
It's like you see like frogs hopping.
Yeah. And then my wife turned to me at a certain point. She's like, "Oh, look, it's Large Mammal Day," and it's true. It was Large Mammal Day. These are all the large mammals. They're all coming in.
This is like racing to the ark.
Yeah,
it's very fun.
I also
love this. It's the most like normal Noah's part of the story.
That's true.
Yeah, I love the part where the forest is growing, that stream stretches out, and it just has like 1,000 different scenes, like pictures spliced together of that stretching across the land, and that's how the animals know where to go because they're following that thing all the way back.
So question, I have a question about that image specifically. Sidebar. Okay, so we see a lot of scenes of the snake, right? The snake that tempted Adam and Eve to fall. First of all, also love that the fruit of the tree of good and evil is just like a beating heart. That's
oh my gosh!
Yeah.
So how did I never think of that before?
Yeah.
But the snake, right? You see the snake and it sheds its skin and it's a black snake underneath the green snake, right? And we see the image of the snake often in this movie, like 4 or 5 times. Do you guys think there's anything to the fact that there's when you show the stream, you show the snake in the one shot, and then the second shot is the river, the stream departing like a snake? Is there something to that image that's being conveyed? Is there? This is an open question because I don't know. Is he trying to draw a parallel between the snake and then this stream?
I actually thought about that as well. I was like, this is and that image sort of comes back in a later scene too.
Yeah. Maybe we need to talk about it there.
I don't know. Like, it seems like it's like, it does seem referential, but maybe that's just certain, you know.
My mind is just finding things that rhyme. I don't know.
Yeah. I went down a rabbit hole earlier today where I found out that before this movie was completely greenlit, Aronofsky and Ari had a friend of theirs who's a Canadian artist write a graphic novel from the screenplay, and I read the entire graphic novel earlier today. It is really, really good. It's pretty short, but it covers the entire movie. It's the entire screenplay. There are different. There are definitely
you need to send that over later.
Yeah, I'll definitely share it after this. And there were a lot of the same. Like I could see the influence of a lot of the imagery from this graphic novel in the movie, and even like down to the little clips of like the Garden of Eden and the rock that Cain is killing Abel with and all that. But the one of the snake, like slithering towards the screen and shedding its skin, that actually, unless I'm mistaken, I don't remember seeing that in the graphic novel.
Huh.
So I wonder if that was something added maybe after the fact. It, to me, like that I didn't see a whole lot of symbolism or a whole lot of like imagery of Satan or the devil or the serpent, right? Just the serpent from the Garden of Eden. Well, I didn't see a whole lot of that other than like obviously the shedded skin that he's wrapping around his arm that is, from the snake. But so I didn't, and that shed skin is in the graphic novel that he wraps around his arm. So it's just kind of implied that that's where it's from. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't see a whole lot of symbolism in the graphic novel. I don't know if that matters, but overall, the graphic novel gave me a totally greater appreciation for this, and it kind of felt like it cracked open a little bit, like some of the funny choices maybe in this, or some of the weirdness in it. It made a little more sense. Like, yeah, that's because the graphic novel is a graphic novel and it's doing it kind of comic booky. And that's why this scene in the movie is a little comic booky, or a little like, it feels kind of like an adventure movie for certain scenes. And it kind of made sense for coming from that graphic novel.
That's cool. I didn't know that. That snakeskin choice is really cool. Like, that's such a cool thought. Like, I would never have thought of that. Right? Like, of course, it's a snake. It sheds its skin.
That confuses it again, though.
It is confusing.
Because,
yeah, it seems to be imbued with some sort of magic power.
It glows.
Like, why is this a good sign for the sons of Seth?
Why are the sons of Seth passing down the lineage using the serpent's skin? And then it wasn't passed down to Russell Crowe, so what does that mean?
Yeah, it skipped him.
I don't know what the power was, so I don't know. So I don't know if he got it.
It's like the firstborn blessing.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't get it.
But he didn't get it, but he's able to pass it on. Maybe the idea is he never got it, so he's able to pass it on to literally everybody. So he passes it on to the twins at the end.
Oh, that might
instead of just the firstborn.
Oh, yeah, that actually makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. Good job, Jesse. That makes sense to me. That's like a tiny choice that I would not have thought about, because he does bless them. He blesses them.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, but I don't know if it's ever like truly like to get Parsi here.
Uh-oh.
I mean, like,
you're gonna get Parsi in my sidebar?
So, okay, so we see that his dad's gonna bless Noah, right? And we make the assumption that, like, oh, this is the blessing of the firstborn son, because the blessing of the firstborn son is important in the Bible, and so, like, only the firstborn son can get the blessing, but that's an assumption entirely on our part.
This is true. But it is some kind of blessing.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Well, they're gonna touch the fingies, and then
they get the...
And it's possible, too, that he got it because the intention to give it to him was there. Like, I don't know.
No, that's lame. No, it didn't.
Does it need
it's a movie.
It's a movie.
I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
Finger touching?
I think so.
It's a visual medium, so. Dan. Anyway, end sidebar. I just wanted to bring it up because I just saw it last night, and I just didn't know. I just wanted to ask the question.
I think it's a great question. Yeah.
Jesse, your favorite scene. I'm sorry to keep you away from it for so long, but now I want you to burst forth and ride your way to heaven on a golden beam, brother.
That's right. So there are these rock monsters in this movie, the rock angels, whatever, the watchers, and they're so strange. They're so bizarre. They're made of like some molten stuff. They walk around like they have bad arthritis, and they have multiple arms and legs, and they're such strange characters. Like, I wasn't expecting them to be here, and yet here they are. Like, we have them, and they're kind of like this super depressed bunch. Like, you're sort of scared when you first see them, and then you just realize that they don't know what they're doing because they came down to help man. Turns out they just made everything way worse because they helped man with his weapons of destruction on the earth, basically. And now, like, they have nothing to do. Like, they're kicked out of heaven because they wanted to go help man, and now that's a disaster. So they're here in a wasteland by themselves, and they're just really sad, and they're slow.
They're taking like super long like depression naps that last years.
yeah. I guess like maybe they just like cover themselves as rocks and go to sleep. I think that's the best scenario for these cursed creatures. And but they decide to help Noah because they realize that God really did speak to him, and so finally they're putting their all their talents to good use, like helping them build the ark. But you see them on screen, they're like half-heartedly like hammering like a nail through wood, and they still look so sad. Like you can tell they're doing the right thing, but now it's still depressing. But then they become like guardians of the ark, away from Tubal Cain's army that's coming forth, right? And finally, at the end, when it starts raining and the ark is about to be lifted up on a flood, they are there with like chains between them, and you can't get. They've made like a giant barrier, and they're kind of like swiping people away again, really kind of pretty slow. Awesome. And then one of them starts getting like ants, the sons of Cain crawl on him and start like piercing the insides, right? And he just looks up and says, "Creator, please forgive me." And then after he says that, he gets pierced so many times that the rocks break out, and he bursts forth. And the
is this when they put the gold stuff and blows them up?
Yeah. They're poking him, prodding him, and they have
they open him up and they shoot it in the core, and then it
yeah, and then he bursts forth, and the other watchers look at him, are just like, the creator has brought him home, and suddenly they start moving, like they just start slaughtering everybody. But finally, you see these creatures, these depressed, sad monsters, like know that they have some sort of purpose. They have some sort of drive. They know what they're doing is right, and they're going for it. They don't care that they're all about to die, because they know when they die, they're going to go back. And I just love that arc, that really depressing arc that they go through that turns out to be like okay for them. Like, that was really unexpected. It's a little bit cheesy, but I like it.
I liked it a lot. Liked it a lot. It made me happy. It made me happy because like the visual symmetry was great between when they're telling the story and you see those little butterfly pixie things come down from the sky and gold, and then they hit the ground and it turns the rock molten and they crawl from it, and that's why they look the way they look like. Is this whatever they were able to break out of the lava, right? Mm-hmm. The magma, and that's what they've been walking around with all this time, and the relief on their faces, and also like the beautiful animation to give us these facial expressions out of these hard rock like visages, right? It was so great. And our main angel, our main point of contact, like he's got this great nose, but it's like an implied nose. Yeah. It's like a nose because there's like some stuff that's gone, and thus he has a big nose.
There's like light coming out.
Yeah, and you can recognize them, and you see like even though there's light inside, they're kind of dead. And the relief that I felt anyway at them being able to die, like it truly felt like, not to step on a future question, but it truly felt like a Northman achieving Valhalla, It's a great scene, Jesse. It's really powerful.
And it's a great way to like wrap up this really strange existence of these creatures in what's supposed to be kind of the real world, or the world that we live in, right? It's not supposed to be this fantasy land. It's supposed to be kind of historical, and like to show that we don't have these rock angels anymore, because they all had a redemptive arc and they all went back to their creator. It's a cool ending and resolution, and I felt like it was a very, very cool, like kind of a mini end to their arc before it gets into the really meaty stuff of Noah and his family and all of them. So it was a very cool, like, halfway through the movie, gives you a little bit of a good vibes. It was good.
Yeah, you need those good vibes to ride the depressing wave that comes after. Yeah.
Wave, I get it.
Yeah.
It actually kind of reminded me too of like the Never Ending Story, like because they're such sad kind of
Oh.
monster creatures. It reminded me of a lot of the creatures in that, where they're talking about like how sad they are and they're very old and it's hard to move now. It reminded me of that in a deep way.
Are you talking about the first Never-Ending Story where the sad rock monster is just staring at hands like, these were good hands?
Strong hands. Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking of. Yeah. Stay tuned for that one. We'll be doing that one. I will be crying the whole time.
I was going to say, in going back to the graphic novel, in one of the biggest differences is that the rock angels are not rock angels. They are almost like trolls. They looked a lot like trolls from like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings or something. They're tall, they're big, they're ugly, they have 4 arms, and the whole time I was reading the graphic novel, I was like, I am so glad they changed that.
Yeah, me too.
Because I think it would have totally changed how I viewed these things. It would have felt just like another fantasy story where there have to be trolls, because there's, trolls and dwarves and elves and everything. So I was very glad of that change, and showing their like inner glow was such a cool visual to like cue you up to the fact that these rock angels have angelic inner beings, and it was much more interesting than just some trolls.
Yeah, and I like that there was a reason that they were rock monsters. Like there's a very plausible reason. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah, great. Yeah, it totally makes sense. Like I don't question it for a second. Whereas if they were trolls, I think I would have a little bit of a harder time.
Where did they get the troll skin?
Yeah, like you just have to answer a bunch of questions that you didn't mean to ask, right?
Yeah, like when the angels crash and they say encrusted, I'm like, oh, yep, that makes sense. That's it.
Look how crusty he is. Look at these crusty boys. Dan, what's your favorite scene?
Yeah, I really, really liked the creation sequence.
You and all of us, Dan. You grabbed this scene.
I wrote it on there before you guys filled out anything. No, it's when Noah they're on the ship, and I think Noah has just told his daughter-in-law that he is going to kill her babies or her baby. If it's a man, it'll be the last man. It'll replace Joseph or whatever as the last man. If it's if it's a girl, I'm going to kill it, basically. And it's like right after that, he goes off and they're all sitting around. It looks like a campfire, and he tells them the story of creation. And I loved it. First of all, just the idea of this like passed on tradition, that these stories were they didn't have writing materials and history books. They had to just pass things off over campfires, telling stories, and that's the kind of the living oral tradition that was the only tradition at the time. And then just the visuals of the actual sequence, I thought was just mesmerizing. It was a really, really cool way of showing everything, but almost like a one shot. It felt very much like, here's like the darkness and then the light, and you felt like it was the camera traveling through, thousands or millions of years, just like a time lapse. And it goes quickly through it. And then you see Earth, and Earth is like this molten ball and gets hit by a meteor. And it's just like, it's so energetic and fast paced and beautiful. And then it goes into the creatures and the mountains like rising out of the water, and it shows the cells splitting, and it just like, it showed just every little piece of creation, and it was so just awesome and beautiful. It kind of, the whole time I was watching it, I was like thinking about the Tree of Life creation sequence, which is one of my favorite scenes of all movies all time. It's the Tree of Life sequence. That's one of those scenes that like I used to teach high school, and I gave like a movie class to my students at one point, and I showed them that scene. I showed them, I kind of built up to it. I was like, think about if you were an artist and you were going to show something as kind of ambiguous or something as unknown as creation, right? It's like we don't really know what it looked like. Maybe you've seen some pictures drawn, but really your imagination is all you have to go on. Like, what would that look like if you were to make it, if you were the one behind the camera? And then let's see what this guy does, right? Terrence Malick with his Tree of Life movie, and he does an insanely amazing, beautiful job showing that. And so seeing this, I was right away like, oh boy, I bet it's not going to be as good as Tree of Life. And then I loved it. And I was like, this is totally different, but totally amazing and beautiful. And it made me want to like go back in time and like compare these two, be like, here's how he does it, and here's how Darren Aronofsky does it. And, let's talk about the differences, or what's, why they chose to show it this way or that way. And it just kind of made me excited to maybe later down the road, if I ever teach a class like that again, to spend way too long talking about it and maybe putting some high schoolers to sleep in the meantime. But yeah, I loved the fact that this is another artist doing another rendition of the creation, and it just kicks total ass. So,
and it's also like the most, besides for, I think, being the most beautiful sequence of the movie, it's the most Aronofsky sequence, right? It's like the most individual sequence. He's doing the quick cuts. He's experimenting with the camera. Like, it reminded me of a lot of like his first movie, Pi, where he's cutting just all the time, and it's an aggressive amount of cutting, and it's a really aggressive, in your face kind of way to do this, in a way that is totally unique to Aronofsky. It establishes him as a voice that's totally unique amongst his generation, right? Whether it's we're talking about Nolan or Fincher or any of the, even Malick, right? They all have their different unique approaches, their unique voices, and this is a voice that is very rarely heard, and it came through so beautifully here. This scene rocked me to my core. Like, not even necessarily as a faith-based person, but just as a person contemplating the idea of being a made thing, right? I think that's enough. Like pass the blunt, bro. Like, bro, am I like a made thing? And I think that's enough for you to deal with for a long time. Is just contemplating the idea of being a creation. And I think that this perfectly encapsulates what that feeling of thinking looks like, right? And it's so abstract, but I feel like it was nailed.
Well, yeah, I mean, in a certain way, it's abstract, but it's also like very realized, right? Like you're seeing it happen. Like then we have the cell split, and then we have the creature that like climbs up on land, like,
and then it's like running,
fish
it's like
that like learn to become birds, and like all this stuff, and then suddenly we have man.
Which also this scene really pissed off a lot of people too.
Yeah, I love this scene because, I mean, I don't know, like I think that there's a lot of people who think there's a lot of you can't believe in evolution and like have a
creationism.
Faith. Creation. At the same time, I think that's totally false. I think that's a silly thing to believe.
It's a weird argument to get into with people.
Yeah, it is. I think that this is marrying those two ideas together in a really. It was the first time I'd seen a movie like someone in culture, like marry those ideas together.
Yeah,
which I love.
It visually perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Visually compellingly.
I'm gonna Jesse. What do you think of this scene? I want to hear what you think. You've been suspiciously quiet.
I've been admiring Dan's praise for it. I love it. Starts out with nothing. Yeah, no, I don't know what else. I don't know how I can add to what you guys are saying. I really like it.
Well, I have to add,
Can we bring it to like one thing that we haven't touched on, which is like that's such a like we didn't really talk about the idea of how Russell Crowe is being passing on this story, and I think that that's something that's just incredible in this movie. Like his fatherhood, which is pretty good most of the time. It seems like it's not great at the end in a lot of ways.
It's passable at times, I would say.
It's pretty iffy somewhere in the middle with the girl in the trap.
And also every situation with his sons he could have handled better. Every one of them.
Oh, I have to say, in the graphic novel, he didn't just leave her in a trap. The
bear trap.
The girl that his son was bringing back. They actually he got her to the boat, and then Noah shoves her off.
Ooh.
Oh wow!
Just being like, no, she can't come because he's assuming that she will, procreate, and he's just like, nope, and just kicks her off and closes the door, and so I was like, wow, that would be a much more pissed off.
No descendant of Cain on my
boat.
boat.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that though. Based off of what he says at the end of the movie, when he says, "I looked down at those children, and just felt so much love."
Yeah.
Like you can't do that and kick a girl off of a boat.
Right.
Like those seem mutually exclusive to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so I disagree that he's a very good dad. I think he's fine.
I mean, I think that we kind of see, I think like up until the point where he starts doing this crazy thing, like he's a pretty good dad. Like
those
taking care
like
of
10
his
minutes,
family in cool ways and teaching like his kids
for 10 minutes
like,
of a few years.
These are the accepted like signs of good fatherhood. Like you teach your kids how to get food from like I don't know, moss. I don't know what they're eating.
He was telling him like don't pick the plants.
Yeah,
it's got
don't
a flower.
pick the plants. You teach your kids about how to take care of the earth, like to treat animals well. Like he burns the sacrifice, and then like God's like, "Hey, go do this thing," and he becomes kind of like crazily obsessed with it.
Right.
Or tries to interpret what God's saying and thinks that it's maybe more than God is saying, or maybe not.
But he doesn't know.
We don't know.
So, a question I actually have that's directly related to this.
Yeah,
directly related. Sidebar again. Sorry, 2 sidebars from one person. I know it's usually
still
verboten.
in a sidebar?
No, I ended it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I think this movie is pretty directly about industrialization, stewardship of the earth, and vegetarianism. I think those are 3 pretty big topics it brings up, either visually or in the story itself. So Mike brings up one where he slaughters 3 hunters who are, of course, going to attack him because he's found their kill. So I suppose he's justified in their killing. However, it's not clear if he buried them, human beings, brethren of his, not only members of the same species, but much, much closer to being relations than we are to each other right now, if we are to believe that we all come from a common parentage. But he does burn the little armadillo dog, right? Also, isn't that weird? It's an armadillo dog.
It's so cool. I really, really want armadillo dogs.
Yeah, but also, like, why does it have any hair? But it has some hair. And you're like, why is there some?
It's still
evolution's still happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the missing link.
Also, maybe Tubal Cain just ate them on the ark, so they never made it.
Right. So, but he burns the dog. It's clear that they're a non-animal product kind of household, and it's clearly shown that barbarism is the consumption of specifically raw animal meat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you see people are just like going hog wild for this bloody raw meat. And they seem like animals themselves. Like eating animals reduces you to animal status. You see Russell Crowe standing in the blood. He, like, when he goes to the city to find a mate for his son, he sees them eating the animal. Everyone's like in fervor, and he looks down. His shoes are bathed in the blood of the animals. Right. This is not something I expected a movie like this to be making a statement about. It does seem to be very clear. There also seems to be statements here being made about the commercialization and maybe the I don't know, what's the right word? The gouging of the Earth's natural resources, the wasting of them.
Yeah.
So you come out at the end with like a pretty progressive message, right? That especially when you're asserting that animal eating is barbarous, you're asserting that the consumption of Earth's resources is also bad, and you're saying evolution is real. Like, it's kind of no wonder that this movie pissed off so much of the people that would seem to be primed to want to see it.
Yeah. But also the not eating meat thing, that is biblical. Like God says you can eat herbs and seeds in the garden. And then he says the animals can also eat the herbs and the seeds. He never says anything about eating the animals explicitly until after Noah lands the ark. He says, yeah, you can eat the beasts of the field. That's fine.
Which is funny because this movie contradicts that, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like they're living as they did in the garden. It's like, wait, I don't remember any story about the Garden of Eden where the animals were just freely eating each other. Like that seems different. But then like but then the modern conception of like a tiger, for example, could not sustain itself on seeds, nor could it even chew the seeds with its giant fangs. I'm very confused now. I'm thinking about a lot of things. And here's Darren Aronofsky being like, exactly, yes.
I think that's why I was kind of okay with it. That like, yeah, I could just see it as like whatever, a political commentary on our modern world of like vegetarians and vegans and all this. But I just saw it as more like the violence that it took, like killing another thing. We all agree. I think like pretty much every human being would agree that like you should like take care of the earth, right? Like that's not a controversial statement, right? What that looks like,
unless you're a major corporation, in which case like you need to be quiet.
Yeah, I mean there are crazies out there, but like your average
they control
person
society,
listening.
Dan. They control society.
And if you're one of those people listening to the podcast, we'll accept your donation, but nothing else. But my point being that like we all agree, like, okay, being a good steward of the earth, yeah, we all agree that is cruelty to animals. None of us are on board with that. Like even if I eat burgers, I'm not a vegetarian. Like I think there's a message here that everyone can take away and go, yeah, I agree with that. Even if I don't agree with, that you can't kill animals. I think a lot of people, obviously there's a lot of people eating burgers out there. You can take the message as a nuanced thing that is existing in a different kind of like alternate dimension, or, it is taking place in a totally different historical context, and the symbolism of it, the message, I think everybody can get behind, right? Like man should not be acting like animals and just killing out of cruelty. And I know I keep bringing up the graphic novel. In that one, they're killing the armadillo dog to get, it has like a tusk, and they're trying to get that ivory. And Noah says, he's like, they're not even killing it to eat it. They're killing it just for the bone of it. And bone is like fingernails and hair. It's dead stuff. So they're killing this for dead stuff. And that was kind of interesting that the graphic novel, Noah wasn't so angry at the killing itself. It was more like the unnecessary killing. I know that's obviously we can't be, I'll stop talking about the graphic novel, but it does kind of interest me because, the movie, yeah, it kind
made
of
a choice. Yeah.
It made a choice. Exactly. And it changed it. But I think the message is still there, and it's, I think, pretty, I don't know, I can get behind it.
I'd say also like you can disagree with some messages in things and agree with the bigger ones. Like that's a small message. And I wonder also about what, like, I mean,
that's us making a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think that, I mean, to me, and this is my, like, the way I'm receiving the movie, like that message is less important than the message of like Darren Aronofsky is a vegan. I am not a vegan. I am a big fan of meat. I like to eat it. But I'm also
congratulations
trying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good for you, man.
Thank you.
Humble brag.
Yeah, I have eaten many meats in my day. I see what I want and I take it.
You have eaten
really,
the whole ark already.
I probably have. That's actually horrible. But like, no, I think there is a lot wrong with the way that we consume food in like our culture today. And so like our family's trying to take more steps in that. It's hard. It's hard to do it. It's hard to like deny yourself partly, and also hard to go and
it's hard on the wallet.
It's hard on the wallet. It's hard on like just capacity to like make good decisions and like find good things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, like, so I think that maybe what he's pointing more towards, what I'm taking from it, at least, I don't know what Darren Aronofsky thinks is more important, is that like the way that we have used the world is pretty bad. Like we've got a trash island floating in the Pacific that's enormous. Like how large is it? It's like 10 miles.
It's like 5 New
diameter.
Yorks.
It's insane. Like this is insane. This is bad shit. And I think that, it's not super progressive to be like, that's not good and we should stop doing that.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. It's considered that way. I think that in 2014 it was considered much more progressive and
Absolutely.
and stuff than it
almost
is now.
Radical.
Yeah, it was considered almost radical in 2014. Maybe this movie is part of what changed that.
Anyway, but I want to call an end to a sidebar. End of sidebar, because I think it loops into all of our questions here. We each have one question. Of these 4 questions, they actually all look pretty similar. All of them are just why
what is this?
So I think Jesse, you and me can team up on one. Jesse, what's your question?
Sure. What's the genre of this movie? It seems like when it starts out, you think it's going to be, well, no, before you even see it, you think it's going to be a face-based movie. And then that dialogue comes on screen. It's like, bah, 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 bah. Like, I don't know what this is anymore. Like, as soon as you see that, you're like, this is oddly very, very intense. And then it becomes a story of like this family kind of running away, and then an apocalypse movie with visions happening. And then like a confrontation between the armies, and it really starts functioning like an apocalypse movie in that way. And then that is an hour in, and then it stops. And then they're like on the boat, and it becomes almost like a thriller where everybody's trying to run away from Russell Crowe because he's going to go kill the babies. And mixed with like a serious drama. Like, I don't know. What do you call this movie?
I have a hard time with this too. Well, first of all, drama. But second of all, it does shift gears so much. Like, we do start out with like a historical epic, and that goes along for quite a while until we do shift down into this chamber piece, right? Where you have essentially like 6 people. You have Russell Crowe being primary threat, but we also, commiserate with him. We also have a lot of feeling for his family, all of whom are allied against him. And then we also feel something for Ham, who's allied himself with Tubal-Cain, who he has snuck onto the boat, right? You have these 3 factions that are all warring kind of against each other. And the way that pays off is not necessarily completely satisfying. But it is a really weird way to structure your movie, to essentially have everyone kind of thinking like, well, movie's over when the flood happens, and then be like, oh no, you have 45 minutes left. Yeah, like a full 45 minutes left. I don't know what to call this because I've never seen someone do that. I've never seen someone build momentum for half of a movie and then just shut it down for the other half and then try and go in another direction. Never.
Yeah, it becomes like a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
But even like throughout the whole biblical epic, like it's not like Ben-Hur or any of those.
No, it actually is more like Lord of the Rings.
It is, but even there, like it's so much smaller in scope in a way.
But you got rock angels sweeping back and forth.
No, for sure. But like Lord of the Rings is populated by so many creatures. This has like 2. There's like a couple of things.
There's like 6 of them. Like it's more like the Fellowship of the Ring.
But like
first movie.
the way it's even like framed and stuff, like we are in big spaces until the trees come up, and then like suddenly we shut down into even closer quarters in a way, and then we get into the ark, and we're like in as close quarters as you can be.
But during the final fight sequence, they do when we see the trees. There's a time jump, right? We see Russell Crowe, and they have made a large clearing, a fantastically large clearing, because the ark is so big.
Yeah,
like they are keeping the scale going.
Yeah, they are.
So in answer to your question, Jesse, I don't know if there is an answer. Is there an answer?
I almost think if it wasn't called Noah and it wasn't a story that we were all familiar with, what would we call it? Probably like an apocalyptic sci-fi or apocalyptic futuristic fantasy. Yeah, like
it would just be fantasy, right?
If it wasn't supposed to be,
so.
it'd just be a fantasy. Like if we didn't know that it's supposed to be happening in 6000 BC or whenever, long time ago. Yeah. If we didn't know that and we didn't know about the Bible story, I think we would have possibly thought it was like 20,000 years in the future in like a desolate apocalyptic landscape. Like that's kind of the feeling of it, where people are barbaric, but they also have like weapons. And they have this magical, like, luminescent gunpowder.
It's Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, when the water goes down, there you see the Statue of Liberty.
There
Like
you go.
that's what it would be.
No. Yeah.
The sci-fi fantasy. No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So
Yeah.
no, so Jesse,
Yeah,
what I would answer this
maybe
is
you
for a
could-
secular person, it's a fantasy, right?
Yeah, it's a fantasy, but yeah, it is a fantasy, but it's far more personal than that.
Right. Because we
It's a
all
really
are familiar
well-written
with it.
fantasy.
And-
It's not just because we're all familiar with it. It's like Noah's struggles. They're big struggles. Like if this was not written down in the Bible somewhere, and you still heard that this was happening, like these would still be huge struggles for people, right? Like I think everybody would connect with this character of Noah. So it's also a grand personal odyssey too, intermixed with
really good fantasy can have that in it too, can't it?
Sure. Yeah, but I see genre as more like genre usually says a movie's functioning a certain way, and the way it seems like we're using fantasy is saying like it has a few of these elements in there. I guess it has maybe more in common with a drama.
It's tough because we're trying to fit it into a box that like this is very
doesn't
much
work,
not it's not a category type movie.
It's a
an
Darren Aronofsky
film.
movie. Yeah.
That's the genre.
Sorry.
Yeah.
A film by Aronofsky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, if you said anybody, I want to see a fantasy movie, all right, go see Noah. Probably not what they mean.
Yeah, I mean, they also probably wouldn't say like, fantasy is so broad, sci-fi is so broad. It can live in the house, right? But the room that it occupies is greater or lesser, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's in the Noah room.
Yeah.
It's a really big room, the size of an ark.
Yeah, it's a really strange room.
We don't understand.
It is somehow bigger than the house. Yeah.
House of Leaves is in there too.
Yeah. But to tie this into my question, because I think it is related, I do want to ask, so in this genre that it's existing in, whatever genre, whether it be fantasy or drama or both, is this movie well written? And by well written, I do not mean is it necessarily, well, actually, I could mean this too. Is it well paced? Do the events happen at times that they should happen in? I also mean just dialogue wise, because I felt like I was groaning all the time, being like, like something profound would be said and beautiful, and in the next moment I would cringe, and the line would just come, it would sail over like a lead balloon, or it would soar, and I guess when I say I could go either way, I also mean that the events in this movie are also weirdly structured. Is it necessary that Tubal-Cain survives and gets on the Ark? What wrap up did we give his arc? Why was he there? Why is Ham pardoned so quickly? Like I have a lot of questions, just even around how they structure the movie. Like, why did they take a 45-minute break in the third act to just talk about how Russell Crowe was a threat to the kids and then he's not? Did we have to have his arc be, I hate all of us and we should all die, into, no, we're all okay now? Like, I just have a lot of questions about why this is the way it is.
I mean, his arc is what he's building.
Thank you, Dan.
I had to
Thank
take
you.
it. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good. It's off the table.
That was some low hanging fruit right there.
So glad you said that.
Very good.
Yeah, one thing I felt like some of the characters, this is more about the writing of it, but the characters kind of felt like each of them were in a different movie. Like I felt there was some miscast with, I struggle with Emma Watson for some reason.
Yes.
She
is terribly cast. This is not a movie she should be in.
Right. Like she's ridiculously pretty and very young looking. And this should have been like I don't know. Somebody else should have been in this character.
She's too fragile.
Yeah. I struggled with her. I struggled with basically all of the younger characters in this. Honestly, I'm going to say it. Sir Anthony Hopkins, as much as I like laughed in his scenes, I felt like he didn't fit. Like he had come in from a different movie and had sat down and he was being Anthony Hopkins, who again, I love.
Like he thought this was like the set of Willow or Excalibur or something. He's like,
right.
He's like, what is this? Some sort of like medieval fantasy epic? Perfect. I could be the mysterious magician.
Yeah, he's like Merlin or something. Like, so I definitely, yeah, I just felt like a lot of those characters, it just made the lines feel like cheesy, or I don't know, the scenes with Emma Watson and Shem felt like they were from like, I don't know, I felt like I was watching a Divergent movie or something. Like,
hell is this, The Fault in Our Stars?
Yeah.
yeah, and like again, having a love story in there is important, and that's kind of like the end arc is that love matters and mercy matters and like life matters. Like it is a crucial point that the movie, the story arc is swinging around, but it just felt, it felt kind of tacky and cringy, and those were definitely the things that I least liked about the movie. They're not going to prevent me from watching it again or enjoying it again, but yeah, I definitely did not enjoy those things.
I feel like with the Tubal Cain, so I think that the reason why Tubal Cain dies in the arc, like he gets on the board of the arc and stuff, is because it's symbolic more than anything. It's like, so like if Russell Crowe and Tubal Cain are mirrors of each other, then and it's kind of like this is the war that's going on in Noah's own heart, where he's like, God isn't really talking to me, he's just like telling me what to do, and I think he wants me to kill my kids. Like this is f***ed up, but if he's God and this is what he wants me to do this, and I have to do it. It's almost like with the death of Tubal Cain, we also have a death of the destructive force or something like that within Noah, because God doesn't want him to do that, I think. Or at least he decides that that's not what he's going to do. I think it more has to do with the symbolism. I don't think it makes sense from a story perspective.
It seems weird to add this extra layer of motivation to Noah's character when there's already a lot of motivation for what he's doing.
Yeah, in a certain way, you kind of want it to like, let's just explore like relationships here that are extremely like intense. Without adding more drama that doesn't really make sense to it.
Yeah.
So I don't think, I don't think it was a bad decision.
Well, I like the
I'm
Tubal
impressed
Cain.
by it.
I like the Tubal Cain being in there because Noah kind of identifies himself as, the whole idea of the Ark is that they are the chosen people. They are the others when the rest destroyed the earth, right? So he, in some ways, Noah knows himself as opposed to the children of Cain, as through himself as a contradiction to them. So to run into Tubal Cain, who is so like, what does he say? I'm going to dominate the earth and build it in my image. Like he's going to become a new god, basically. And maybe knowing that and hearing that brings forth a kind of contradiction that he suddenly sees in having to kill his grandchildren, which is if he is killing creation because the babies are a new creation, right? If he kills the new creation, then won't that make him like Tubal Cain? And I think it's a question that's so hard to justify that he just can't do it. But he also thinks that's what God wants, which leaves him in that quandary where he just has to drink wine in order to forget about it because he cannot solve it within himself. So no, I don't think that can quite be resolved in another relationship on the Ark. I think you need to bring in a son of Cain for that to happen.
And building on that too, I think it's supposed to sort of represent that like Tubal Cain is being brought on the Ark within Noah himself. Like at the end there's not much difference between the two of them. And like we've sort of seen this throughout, but we've given Noah a bit of a pass. Like he is freaking brutal. Like he kills people really well. He is a better fighter than the people who are supposed to be the best fighters. Yeah, just to add to what you're saying and completely agree with it. And maybe during like it's sort of through that final battle and the killing of that side of him, he's able to.
I think, like, remember when there's an image of his face somewhere in the camp? I think that's why he sees his face in there, because he is a brutal killer, just like that. I think that's also why he wants to kill off humanity, because he just realizes, like, I am not that great of a guy, but I am the only one that God's talking to on the face of the earth, so that I could save people. So there's no way that my line it's going to be better than the line of Cain's.
But he's also he's essentially committing suicide by by killing these babies, right? He's saying mankind has to end, including myself. He's kind of like identifying with Tubal-Cain and
rejecting it.
Yeah. So like, I don't know that he saw himself as other than the fact that he's like, we're the ones chosen to, be the last bastion to save these animals. But he still, I think he definitely sees himself as just as bad as Tubal-Cain, other than the fact that I was chosen by God to do this special task before basically disappearing and dying and all of humanity ending.
And in some ways, like wanting to commit suicide like that, like to destroy humanity, that does separate himself out from Cain. Like Cain would never do that. That's the opposite of what Tubal-Cain wants. He wants to dominate the earth in his image. He wants to be fruitful and multiply in that way.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about Tubal-Cain says I take life and I give life. I am just like you. That's what Noah does. Like those are his two actions there. Like he takes a life. Well, wait, how does Tubal-Cain die? Logan Lerman stabs him in the arm.
Yeah, Ham stabs him.
Yeah.
Only good thing he does in the whole movie.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And I'm going to throw this out there. I promise last time I'll bring up the graphic novel that he stabs him with a necklace that is the piece of ivory that they got from the dog armadillo.
Of course it is.
Oh, interesting.
Of course it is. Yeah, I mean, amazing. When you got dramatic irony, it just falls in your lap.
Yeah.
Dramatic irony.
Ooh,
nice.
Very
Damn,
good.
I thought of it at the same time.
And I'm embarrassed.
So I would like to stop the discussion there, because after this, I think we've said a lot of good things, and I think that people can make up their minds about it. And I think that I've definitely been challenged a lot by this discussion, and I really appreciate it. But I think that we do need to move on here.
Yeah. Well, real quick, if I could just summarize a little bit, like I love what we're talking about, the writing with Noah's character. I think that's good. That's what hooks me to the movie. Dan, with everything you were saying about the miscasting, I think that's definitely there. I think the pacing is off in this movie. It's too jolting for it to be a continually joyful experience to watch, because it's just so odd, and it just it jerks you around on a really hard chain. So yeah, the writing it's very strange. I like the writing of the character, but not the structure of the movie, is what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, I agree with that statement.
Russell Crowe carries this movie on his back. But
that's probably why he got so fat and unhinged. He blew out his back in this movie.
That's probably true. You're probably right, Vito. But it's such a beautiful mess of a movie. Like I love it.
Yeah, actually, talking about we all have Letterboxd. You should also all follow us on Letterboxd. Yeah. I actually rate this movie higher than all of you, and I have the most criticisms.
4.5 stars.
Because it makes me feel.
Yeah,
it makes me feel. This movie that's what I love about this. As critical as I am of this, because I don't like saying something's a mess when something's very clearly delineated in the creator's mind.
It's not a mess.
But no, it's okay to describe it that way because it's a mess to view.
Yeah.
Right?
It's biblical almost, in the way that we've got we've even got with the Cain thing and then the later thing, but that also is mirrored by when Noah goes out. I'm sorry, but it's when Noah goes out of the tent and his wife follows him, and we have them silhouetted against the night sky, which is beautiful. Yeah. We have this constant mirroring of things happening, and choices being made that are mirrors of other people's choices, and people who are mirrors of each other. It's extremely biblical. And it's like you're saying, it's clearly this is intentional. It's just,
it's a little obscure. It's a little
clunky.
Difficult to get to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, it's like an unrefined circuit board, it works, but we have too many resistors here. We have too many jumps.
Too long to get there.
Yeah. This could be streamlined.
Spotty. This
could be a little bit better, but also it's so weighty and big. I mean, it's amazing that anyone even tried.
Yeah.
It's true. And that's what I love, though, is that it makes me feel, I'm just really critical. The things I love the most, I'm really critical of, which is the insight into my personal life. which is why I kind of wanted to go over to why is the reaction all over the place. I feel like Mike, your question. I'm sorry, you should have said it, but I just really want to answer it because it's for everything we've been saying.
Yeah.
It's so hard to get into this, and we are, we have a movie podcast. We watch more than one movie a week, which is already more than average. And we talk about difficult movies, we talk about easy movies. Like, we're movie lovers from way back in the day. And this movie is a little rough going. And so it would be difficult for me to imagine, for instance, my parents seeing this movie and liking it in any way.
Yeah.
Like, besides for the parts where Russell Crowe was a war chieftain and the rock monsters were killing people, right? And that's not to say anything mean about my parents. It's just that it's so resistant to conventional movie making that's the moment where it's most accessible, right? I think that's why it's critics would love it because it's artsy, it's fartsy, and it's a brave vision. And that's exactly why people don't like it. Why general, normal people who don't watch a million movies don't like it, right? Am I overstating? Am I being mean to anybody?
And added to that, like, it's taking a very clear agenda on some hot button issues.
Yeah,
which it's going to be divisive just because of that,
right?
As well as being like not a straight up Noah movie,
right?
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of it's drawing the people that it will piss off the most. That's kind of a weird. It's like it's drawing the people that like faith-based movies, and it's probably going to piss them off the most, especially if they don't like the evolution stuff or they don't like going against biblical.
People don't like it when you mess with the Bible and you advertise a Bible movie.
Yeah. That's a real hardcore way to piss off millions of people.
Yeah.
but even if it's not a religious-based person, even if you're just like a regular average moviegoer that wants a good Russell Crowe movie, this is not a normal Russell Crowe movie. Mm-hmm. This is a very surreal, symbolic, epic, and crazy time, and that's going to piss off a lot of people. So it's kind of like it's drawing the exact people that will write a bad review about it or will not like it. And I know that during parts of my life, when I was younger, I would not have liked this either. I probably would have been very turned off, not understood any of the appreciation, the things that we've been talking about that we really like about it. So it's I don't even know who I would recommend this to, other than like if I have friends that watch a ton of movies. Yeah, like, oh, that'll be somebody I recommend this to. But anybody else, this would be such a like dangerous recommendation. Like, I could lose my reputation of a recommender of movies if I recommended this to everybody.
You gotta let that go though, Dan. You gotta let it go. I don't have that reputation anymore. Just recommend what you like, man. That's all there is out there.
Yeah, I if I recommended this to people, I would probably want to like sit around and talk about and like temper expectations for what it is first, and talk about it a lot afterwards, because that's the only way to really watch this movie, I think.
Discussion.
Yeah, you need discussion with this one.
Finally, Dan, do you have a little question for us?
Yeah. What would Eggers have done?
No angels. They would be demons. They would be literal demons. They would be eating people. Russell Crowe would have eaten the babies.
Well, like, obviously, Willem Dafoe would be in it, first of all.
Yeah. You're talking about Robert Eggers, right?
Robert Eggers, yeah.
Okay. Not David Eggers.
From The Witch and
The Lighthouse and The Northman, which I still have not seen.
Wait, you haven't seen it?
It's so metal. What are you doing?
No,
what are you doing, man? You gotta
see it. I'm going to go see it with a buddy of mine. We already know, like, next week, hopefully. I know I'm going to see it. Don't worry. It's just taken me a little longer than I would have liked, but
I thought this was your way of just like sneaking and talking about the Northman.
I thought that too. Dan, this is so your shit.
Yeah.
I know. I've been told. Yeah, no, I think Eggers is like he's kind of pushing the idea of like making a historical movie or a movie set in a timeline,
Yeah.
or in a certain time in history. And so it just kind of tickled my brain to think like, what would he have done differently than Aronofsky in this if he was making a Noah movie? I feel like it's kind of a funny question to ask.
You know what's the same though? You know what's exactly the same is that Russell Crowe would totally have had to do psychedelics in a hermit's cave to figure out what's going on with God.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That would have stayed exactly the same.
Oh, yeah, that's right. This movie, another kind of divisive topic that this movie is all for is psychedelics to talk to God.
Talk to God,
yeah,
and to get accurate information.
The only way to get accurate information is by doing LSD.
And maybe people on a boat, isolated for a long time, all about to kill each other. That would be a thing.
That almost might have been like actually.
Thing.
You know what he would have done? He would have done the same thing as Aronofsky. He'd have done a half and halfer, and the second half would have just been. That's like I don't want to spoil too much about the Northmen, but there is a clear delineation in the Northmen between one location and another location, and you get kind of surprised at a certain point. They're like, the rest of the movie we're just going to be here.
Just going to be here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's actually a more apt comparison than you knew, Dan.
I don't think we would have gotten like the scientific like creation story.
No.
Yeah. You wouldn't have been interested in that at all. It might have been the studio might have pushed him to do a mythical like
some like I don't know, there'd be a figure on a horse that would ride and you'd see the
tree with like things.
Yeah, something like that. A tree with things, yeah.
The language would have been totally different. That was one thing I thought of was like he would have tried to make it sound like it took place in 6000 BC.
Well, the writing would have been better.
Yeah, I think the language would have made you even more immersed in it. It wouldn't have felt like, a couple teenagers in a love story from the Divergent series.
Yeah,
like
that would have been cut. There would not have been a love story in this.
Yeah.
I thought you meant that they would be like speaking in Sanskrit or something,
which would be rad.
Which would be
I'd be all for that.
They'd probably speak in a Sanskrit English hybrid.
Yeah, really like roll awesome. A lot of R's for no reason.
You've heard of Spanglish. Now we've got Sansklish.
Could you need to go wash your mouth out with soap. That sounded like a nasty word.
Hey guys, is this a dad movie?
Hell yes.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
Heaven yes.
Yeah.
Rainbow yes.
Oh, Jesse.
Little hesitation.
Huh?
Yeah, no, I'm not a wholehearted dad. Like I will show this to my kids someday, but like this is not the top of the list of all movies to watch for me.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So for me, I'm sorry, I should have clarified before I asked you why you felt a certain way. I say this is a dad movie because this expresses two things about myself and my life very concretely that I think are really beautiful. Both my favorite scene and also Dan's favorite scene, the creation scene. Those two things express something very deep about myself in a way that I could never describe to somebody or even could really get into why they did that unless I was paying you and I was laying on your couch. And I think that's really cool that there's something that exists out there that I can point to and say like that describes what I think and what I feel in a very specific way about my life or about how I view God. And I love that when I do show this to my kids, I can share at least that. And they can, puzzle over that long after I'm dead and be like, what the hell was that talking about? Like, what was it that was so touching? So that's why I say it's a dad movie. I would love to be remembered for this kind of movie,
Yeah, I guess I think this is a dad movie because of the topics here. Like, I think in some ways, especially if you're a person who's Christian, then you probably struggle with this sort of stuff. This is kind of like a universal dad struggle. Like, what does God want me to do? And so I think the topic is very dad. But like, I don't think I'm like super thrilled to like open that up with my kids. Like, hey, like, I think this is going to be a topic. It will be said, and this will be shown probably to help along with it. But like, it doesn't like fill me with joy to think that this is what's going to happen in the future, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think it'll be a fun time.
I think I'm looking forward to showing this to my kids more at the end of this podcast than at the beginning. I do think as kind of an introduction to surrealist movie making and just how bizarre it can be, but how, deep it can be, how it can be controversial, and maybe that's okay. Maybe it's okay to, ruffle feathers and to have your feathers ruffled, and as kind of an introduction to, a difficult movie to watch and a difficult movie to discuss, but a movie that sparks that discussion, like that there's value to that. I kind of do look forward to maybe sitting down with my older kids, 17, 18, like I said. And I kind of do look forward to that now, especially if they are with a more, intellectually bent, or like they're kind of deep thinkers. I would love to like throw this at them and prepare them for it, but then also talk it over with them. I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Anything final to say, Mike?
I'm vibing with all y'all. You're right.
So,
just vibing on that wave.
Yeah.
Vibing on the wave.
I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. This is one that actually I've always wanted to talk about, and I was happy that we were able to get such a good, big discussion out of it. Gives me great hope for the rest of the chronological crows. Like I said, I will not be here for the next 2 episodes, but next week you will be fighting to the death in a sand pit.
I will be glad to do it.
That's right. It's Gladiator, guys.
You'll be glad or something.
Gladiator?
Or a hater.
Cool.
So
it's Gladiator.
So enjoy Joaquin Phoenix perving on his sister, and then Russell Crowe kicking the shit out of him later. I can't wait to watch along with you guys and hear what that episode's going to sound like. Really pumped for it. But thank you guys for coming here to talk about Crow in the ancient times, the biblical times. This was great.
There's a crow for every time.
How do you guys feel about recording what might be one of the most controversial episodes of our show?
I feel great. This was a fantastic episode.
We did high-level journalism, guys.
Yeah.
I hope people come up to me and like, Dan, you really like that movie? I kind of look forward to that.
I want someone to come and like spit in my face.
I want to get punched. And I want to get hugged. I feel seen for the first time.
Yeah. Same person. Yeah,
same person.
I can't wait for the flood that'll happen.
Oh, God. We have to end this now.
All right.
For all of us at Not Your Father's Movies, I'm Vito.
I'm Mike.
I'm Dan.
I'm Jesse.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Not Your Father's Movies. Please let us know what you think about movies and our discussions on our Twitter at NYF Movies, on our Not Your Father's Movies Facebook group. Follow us on Instagram or email us at notyourfathersmovies@gmail.com. Also, please consider supporting us on Patreon. This podcast has cost us a lot of time, effort, and money. Please consider contributing and we will start sending you monthly newsletters, our bonus WhatsApp episodes, and even an NYFM mug. We hope to hear from you soon. Lastly, thank you to Max Agros for our awesome theme playing right now, and to Andy LaFave from Don't Dance for the remix that you hear at the beginning of every episode. Thanks again for listening to Not Your Father's Movies.